Guys, Bitcoin has been so underwhelming lately. I kind of just want to touch on what I think is going to happen. Now, obviously we have the BOJ rate increase happening in about maybe 2 hours, give or take. Don't mind me, I'm on the floor. I ran about 6 miles and that was after a leg workout. So I'm extremely exhausted. I just kind of wanted to come on here, give you guys some words of wisdom, some hope, and just kind of give you my whole landscape and sort of mindset when it comes to investing and how I kind of approach these very stressful and overwhelming markets if you're somebody who is very entrenched in the market. Someone like me who's been saying hey guys, just chill in spot, don't do anything. If you have dry powder on the side, just kind of dollar cost average as you go. Obviously not financial advice. A lot of people are very stressed. There's a lot of people thinking oh guys, we've crashed 30% every single time. We've had a rate increase from Japan. Altcoins are basically getting decimated. I think the total 3 and others are at all-time lows, if I'm not mistaken, for this cycle. Obviously there's a lot of Solana FUD where they're getting sued and I don't know what with Pump Fund, which I'm not too concerned about that in particular. I think Pump Fund may face some issues, but I mean, the president launched a meme coin on top of Solana. So what's really going to happen, right? And obviously we had a very cold CPI inflation reading. I think even Japan had one as well. And so I wouldn't really, I don't know, call me crazy, but the most hated rallies are typically the ones where everybody's sidelined and they send the price a lot higher when everyone's thinking oh, the prices are going to go low, and they have all their stable coins because they sold everything, kind of being psyoped into thinking everything's going to go down 50%. Now, obviously, can that happen? Of course. But, things are down considerably, right? And if you're somebody who's scared, you always want to take a step back and then maybe just refine your investing strategy, right? So, I'm not saying be all in or all out, but you always want to take a dollar cost averaging approach because nobody knows the bottom, nobody knows the top, and you always want to have dry powder on the side. So you don't always want to just throw everything in right away. You typically want to go into increments, and then ideally if the price goes lower, then you want to start buying more as the price drops. So my whole investing strategy back in around 2023 when we were in the peak bear market, I was basically trying to buy Solana, Sui, for example, Ethereum, and I had set buys, right? So every single, I think it was 2 weeks, I was just automatically buying. Bitcoin I was buying every week. When it came to Solana and Sui in particular, because those are 2 I really wanted to heavily accumulate, I would basically just put in double the amount every 20 or so percent that the price dropped. Now, obviously, things are down about 50, 60% depending on, how you want to calculate your all-time highs. So again, it's not a bad time to start nibbling into some of your favorite altcoins, in my opinion. That's what I've personally been doing. I'm prepared for it to go lower and I have dry powder on the side in case they go lower. So again, it's just there's no one can predict the future. And I think that the only people really sweating are the ones that maybe over leverage, maybe they leverage trade, maybe they took out loans, and nobody's going to go on your journey for you, right? There's so many people that have no shortage of opinions, myself included. You don't even have to listen to me. I'm just kind of giving you my sort of analysis and thesis and plan, with how I've became successful investing in cryptocurrency, stocks, and all that kind of stuff. And you always want to think about the contrarian side of things because the market makers and the big whales, they all know how basically, how everyone's feeling, right? And so when you invest in a world where they want to extract the most amount of value from the most amount of people, you need to have a counterintuitive, almost sort of psychological mindset, right? Because if everyone's bullish and super bullish and everyone's max longing, what would make the most amount of sense? Obviously, it's not just going to go straight up. They're probably going to want to send the price in the opposite direction. Now, Bitcoin's down about 33%. We're about to probably test its local lows back in, I think it was maybe April, close to $75,000. That's been my line in the sand. I think that would be where we structurally remain bullish on a higher time frame. Wouldn't be surprised to see us go, down on that level. But again, it's how much lower do you really think we're going to go, right? Can we go down to 50, 60K? Maybe. But are you a buyer at that level? You have to find, if you're a long-term investor, right? Where are you a buyer? If you're maybe put your mindset in the shoes of a billionaire or any of these massive either institutions or hedge funds, right? Where would you want to allocate your money into Bitcoin? What price? What price for Solana? What price for anything? Probably not at all-time highs. And I don't think that we're necessarily going to test the last year's last cycle's lows because think about it. We've had so much more money into the system. There's a lot more stable coins that have been minted. Market caps have gone up considerably. And so realistically speaking and historically speaking, we don't typically revisit the past cycle's all-time highs. And, obviously everything can change. Like, I think that you can make the argument that this cycle is completely different in the sense of the overall landscape. Basically, the amount of extraction that's kind of gone on. We had the biggest liquidation event ever. We've had a very pro-regulatory system, which apparently hasn't done anything for the price. Actually, it's gone the complete opposite. And so, you have Michael Saylor, you have, BlackRock, you have all these major ETF kind of, just buying. So there's just a lot of different things that's just objectively speaking, right? And so you need to set yourself up in a way that you're going to be comfortable. Now, everyone loses money in the market, whether that's through holding spot or through leverage. And if you have a longer time horizon, there does come a time, like history will always tell you this, where you're at an all-time high, your portfolio is at an all-time high. Now, obviously it sucks, it feels horrible when everything's down, but realistically speaking, those are like the best times, in my opinion, to be buying. You never want to buy off of euphoria, because what's your risk to reward? Like, even if, everyone's feeling good, you're making money, it's like you're only getting like 30 or 40% when things are at all-time highs versus like when you're buying everything when it's super painful. That's the difference between making a 30 to 40% gain off your investment versus like a 10 to 20x. Because, for example, like the concept of someone making over 10x is just crazy. Unless you're in crypto, of course, and you've been here for longer than a cycle. But if you were buying Solana around $10, where it crashed down to about 2023, 2024-ish, it went up to like $300. That's a significant amount, right? Same with Bitcoin, even like Bitcoin itself, right? Everyone was like sidelined on Bitcoin thinking like, oh, Bitcoin's only going to go up, 4 or 5x or whatever. What did it do? It went from $15,000 all the way to $126,000, which is basically outperforming most of the market. When you factor in, how much everything is down, pretty much your, altcoins valued against Satoshis or valued against Bitcoin. That's not a hot topic, but, the charts do not lie. So with that being said, we're about to have the speech from the Bank of Japan. I don't know, call me crazy, but I think that it's somehow going to be bullish. Now, obviously short term, we can, sell off, we can get a liquidation flush, but I would not be surprised to see us trading higher by probably like Monday. That's just how cycles tend to happen. I'm happy to be wrong, and you're gonna stay subscribed and check my next video, because we're going to see how my prediction goes. You guys can meme on me if I'm wrong. You can follow along if I'm right. But yeah, with that being said, trade safe, guys. Have a great day, great weekend. See you soon.